Hello and a warm welcome to another edition of the Irish Angle, our weekly discussion show where we go through all the news stories that have broken in the last week, both at home and abroad. As usual, I've Emma Nagle and Johnny Ward here with me, and we're going to go through them all. Now, there's a lot to get through from last week, so maybe first off, I'm just going to go through some headlines, and then maybe you two guys can pick out what any little aspects that you want to discuss. So we'll start off with some of the big stories during the week that we're not going to go through in much detail because we've some bigger fish to fry later on in the show. So I'll start off with some of the things. I'll go through them and then you can tell me if there's anything you want to discuss in a bit more detail. First big one is obviously Noble Talent winning at Goran Park for Emma Nagle's dad. Emma's mentioned this in the show a few times, and the horse finally pops up 11-1 at Goran Park. A big win, won easily with Danny Mullins on it. Then, of course, we'd Robbie Dolan won the Melbourne Cup. Fantastic win for him and a complete roughie, as they call them in Australia. And Vauban, who finished down the field there, Willie Mullins is now talking about a possible Stayers Hurdle campaign for him. Then we've Dylan Brown McMonagall. Turns out he's got the fastest greyhound on the planet, a horse called Droopy's Kathleen, or a dog called Droopy's Kathleen even. She broke the course record in Shelbourne Park last week. She's going to run a beat stakes final this weekend on Saturday. He's actually in Australia at the moment, so he won't see it live, but some performance, his first ever dog, I'm told. Willie Mullins, then, he got an honorary doctorate at the Southeast Technological University during the week, so it's Dr. Willie from now on. And then we had a walkover in Exeter. Captain Teague of Paul Nicholls picked up a 40 grand race, just the only runner in it. A few other things. Then we had Marine Nationale beaten again, which is very disappointing. Jericho de Repene at Sandown, huge drifter in the betting for Nicky Henderson, and went from 2-11 to 8-11 and pulled up after jumping the fourth hurdle, which he didn't jump well. And then the other thing I have here is Floring Porter injured out for the season, which is very disappointing for all his connections and fans of the horse. All right, Emma, start off with you. Anything in there that you want to elaborate on?
There's loads in there. It's probably enough for a normal show on a normal week. But no, I'll start with Noble Talent. Great day in Gore on Saturday. And I think you have to we have to give all the praise to Danny Mullins, because we weren't even going to run the horse, to be honest. We thought it looked a fairly competitive looking rated novice chase. But Danny was he rang during the week and he was saying, run the horse. I'd say he was more confident than any of us. And like Danny Mullins is he's just brilliant, because when he tells you something about a horse, he's very, very rarely wrong. He's a brilliant judge of form and everything. So yeah, no, it was a great day, and yeah, hopefully there'll be a few more nice days to come with him as well. He looks a nice progressive horse. But yeah, I'll choose out the rest of it, I suppose. Marine Nationale, I was massively disappointed, but I was actually reading quotes Barry Connell there saying how he was happy with it. I don't really know how you could be happy with it, to be honest. Like a supreme novice hurdle winner, getting weight from the winner. He should have been winning him if he's going to beating him if he's going to have any chance in the champion chase. And I thought the Jericho de Repene thing was probably one of the most interesting stories in the week, to be honest. The drift in the betting was incredible. Really. I think he opened up 2-11 in the morning, and then he was out to 8-11 by the time the race went off, which was a massive drift in the market. And then the fact he delayed the race by 10 minutes, whether he should have been allowed to run or not, was probably one question. And surprising that Nicky Henderson ran him then, considering, he often gets plenty of stick for wrapping his horses up in cotton wool, but decided to take the chance with this fella, even though he was showing kind of that he was in a different kind of form before the race. So yeah, that was a really, really strange one. It kind of seemed as if someone somewhere knew something about the horse, but whether those pieces will be put together or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, it was a big weekend of news, I suppose.
It certainly was. Johnny, what do you pick out of that lot?
Yeah, I was Noble Talent is the only place to start, I think, really. I was at the races, and yeah, it was great to see. Like, I don't think I'd interviewed him as dad before after a winner. It's just haven't been at a meeting race, and he haven't had that many horses the last few years, maybe. And just what it means to a small yard, even to have a winner like that, a good horse as well. And he was, as you say, was full of praise for Danny. And then he was talking about having the half sister at home as well, and how the family has been so good to him and all that. But yeah, it was good performance for Noble Talent on ground. Obviously, that I felt was probably going to be too quick from really given his hurdles form. But the ground is a big issue at the moment, Vinny. Like I honestly could not believe Eddie Scally saying to me in Gorn that they'd had 1 millimeter, I think, in 13 days. It's incredible. And you see the walkover Captain Teague, which I thought was utterly bizarre. You see the field size at Huntington today, it looks like a bags meeting with non-runners. Like there's no 5 or 6 runners at maximum in every race. And there's a story in the Racing Post about Gordon Elliott saying how many of his horses are behind. And so the ground aspect is weird. Like I don't know. I don't know what it is with trainers though. How can you not run a horse on good ground? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like what do you work a horse on? Like is a horse not naturally designed not to break down on good ground when you have a 40 grand race reduced to a walkover, when he could literally just go around, even find the worst of the ground and finish second. I just find it weird when we're on about prize money, how trainers are so afraid of good ground, but obviously they know more than me. It just seems strange. Like it's not like running them on concrete, surely. But anyway, so you have that, and I couldn't get over what Eddie Scally was saying, and it's been a big issue of late with the racetracks trying to get the ground safe and all of that. And I'm amazed because early on in the first half of this year, Goran got so much rain. I was wondering, like, would they even be able to hold a flat meeting? And here we have their meeting on Saturday where the ground is such an issue. And I have sympathy for ground staff. I had one clerk of the course come up to me recently in relation to comments we made on this show about ground staff, and I think they appreciate that when people say that they have a tough job, but it's almost unprecedented at the moment, and we see with the problems that Thurles are having on Thursday as well.
Yeah, third week in a row nearly the Thurles has been abandoned because the ground is too firm for them. It's astonishing, isn't it? I don't remember a winter like it, or the start of a winter at least like it. And I know you say about why would you run on good ground, it shouldn't be a problem and all the rest, but like I'm sure the trainers know that if you've got one and they come back with sore shins or whatever after, they're gone for months. That's the issue, isn't it? And you're trying to do the best by the horse for starters, plus the owners and everything else. Yeah, go on, Emma.
Even the difference in Goran descriptions, even Johnny mentioned the ground. Like Goran, it was even Danny was saying it. Like that same horse, Noble Talent, he ran in Cork, was it 3 weeks ago? I think the ground description was the exact same, but like the ground was totally different. Like it varies a lot from course to course, I suppose. But like when it says good, it might be good in one track, it might be good to form another track, it might be good to soften another track. Like there isn't a whole pile of consistency between kind of going descriptions and different tracks, which is a bit frustrating for trainers as well, I think.
Yeah, you've got to been on about this a million times over the years, but you've got a team of people doing this. There's different people at each of those tracks, most likely, or different clerks at the course making their decisions on what they call it. And basically, they're sticking a stick in the ground, finger in the air to come up with that, when there is an alternative system to do this, which Gordon Park have been using actually, is the going stick. I tried many years ago to bring that into Ireland, because I was in contact with the people in England who produced them and wanted to get a team, because we had lads on track every day going there early. I thought, look, leave the official going as whatever you want to call it, but let us do a going stick as well. But we were blocked by the Turf Club at the time. They didn't want us to do it, which is a bit disappointing, because like here we are years later and we're still dealing with the same issues. Anyway, we're going to move on to bigger things, and we're back to almost the Turf Club with the first one. The Mazars report, financial irregularities at the IHRB. Finally, after 16 months of inquiring into all this, Mazars produced a report last week. There's been lots of stuff in the media, including I wrote a blog all about it on yesterday morning. So, Johnny, what do you make of all of this?
It's not good, Vinny. Like, and when Paul Kimmage is writing about racing, that's not good. He's written some stuff that was of questionable merit, I think, in terms of investigations into drugs and racing. But his piece on Sunday, you couldn't pick a hole in it, and he quoted Richie Forrester in the Racing Post and Brian O'Connor, who are basically, when you think about journalism now, how many people actually write about racing in the media or in the print media? It's very, very, very seldom. And Brian and Richie are basically to the fore of that now, of what's left in terms of writing pieces. And they were both very critical of it. There's a couple of things here. Like, why was Dennis Eagle, why was he getting this extra bonus onto his redundancy when really it was always going to cause these problems? So am I wondering, like, was this a sort of facilitating leaving, and was this like some sort of agreement that didn't happen but obviously did happen, that, well, listen, Dennis was going to depart if this money were there, because it was going to cause so many problems. And then the issue of, you spoke about the Father Ted aspect, the money resting in my account, but like, why was money transferred from a charity that wasn't noticed for 3 months? And why did the sword fall on just one person who we obviously hadn't heard anything from since he went on gardening leave or whatever? So it stinks, to be quite honest. It's in the overall scheme of things, nobody died and it's money. It is what it is. But in terms of how you run an organisation, this isn't good at all. And the look is terrible. And anyone reading the Sunday Independent who has a past interest in racing will read Kimmage's piece and say, well, this ain't good.
Yeah, well, the bottom line with it all, after all the dust is settled, is this has cost taxpayers a lot of money. Like, first of all, there was €242,990 was given from horse racing Ireland to the IHRB as part of that early retirement package. That doesn't fit the scheme, so it shouldn't have officially been given. That's 242 grand. First off, that was thrown away. Then we have the CFO of the IHRB. He was on paid leave for a year. That's another 90 odd grand that was paid to him when he did nothing, like doing nothing during the year, I should say. And then we also had 80 grand paid to Mazars to do a report. So you add it all up, it's about 400 grand got peed against the wall ultimately here in all of this, and yet it's our money. So like, there really does need to be proper checks and balances about what happens, our taxpayers' money, when it goes to organisations like Horse Racing Ireland and the IHRB. IHRB, in fairness to them, are now talking about implementing all sorts of stuff. They've made a lot of changes already, and they look to be really putting a clean broom through their house to try and sort everything out. But it needs to be squeaky clean, and it has to be transparent going forward. That's the bottom line as far as I'd see it. What did you make of it, Emma?
Yeah, it kind of just seems to be a theme in Ireland, isn't it? When there's government money involved, people just seem to go wild. It's kind of plenty of when public funds come in, people just don't really seem to think it's real money or something. But I think firstly you kind of have to applaud Darragh O'Loughlin. Like, you might say, oh, right, anyone in his position would report these kind of irregularities, but obviously before him, there wasn't much regard for corporate governments within the IHRB. So, like, he more or less whistle blew on his own organisation, and kind of brought all this to light, which was the first big thing, I suppose. And then, as Johnny mentioned, the Dennis Egan pension packet. Like, why would the IHRB take advice from third party who was advising that he gets this amount over the amount that was clearly set out in the HRI scheme, and then after that, then I think the extra was paid by the Turf Club. Like, who are the Turf Club? Why do the Turf Club have this money to give to Dennis Egan? Why would they pay Dennis a portion of Dennis Egan's golden handshake from the IHRB? There's so many questions coming out of it. It's just like cowboys and robbers kind of stuff. It's hard to believe that these are the people given the reins to judge Irish racing, and they've had a horrific week, like a massively horrific week. Maybe this obviously hasn't gone under the carpet. So Ruby wrote a really good article in the papers as well, and like it's being picked up. And like you said, like when it's public funding, it makes it an awful lot worse. And then, like, to take money from the Injured Jockeys Fund, like the Injured Jockeys Fund, people donate money to that in trust that it's going to go towards people who drive the sport, I suppose, putting their bodies on the line every day. And then, although the money was returned, like, I don't think anyone who donated to the Injured Jockeys Fund throughout the year wanted it to help pay out a retirement package to someone who's probably underworked and overpaid already. So yeah, I thought it was a joke. The whole thing is a joke. Look, you can say maybe it's moving in the right direction now with Darragh O'Loughlin at the board. Obviously he has integrity to report this, but you'd imagine there's plenty of people still in the IHRB who are involved in what was going on in the first place. So it's probably a tip of the iceberg, I'd say, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, look, Darragh O'Loughlin appears to be doing a fantastic job since he's come in. But the problem is he's got the very same board that Dennis Egan had. He's got the very same everything all around him. Most of them are Turf Club or Irish National Hunt Steeplechase Committee and so on. So they're all wearing different hats. The same people that were the trustees of that charity are the same people that are on his board, are the same people that are members of the Turf Club. So I don't know if we ever get it properly sorted, but at least they'll find it more difficult in future to be pulling the wool over our eyes with this sort of stuff, because there is going to be a lot more checks and balances in place. Moving on, next one, Luke Coolmore Jr. He'd originally got banned for a year over the fact that there were horse carcasses found on land associated with him. It wasn't actually on his training ground, but anyway, he got banned at a referral hearing for a year. Then we go and we get an appeal from him, and it turns out he wins at the appeal. The basic thing with the appeal is that the referral committee had made a mistake by linking animal remains found on land to racehorses he trained. And the appeal committee said, that's not quite right. That was never suggested by the IHRB in the original referral hearing. So they think that his suspension he had got was linked to that. So they've reduced it down now. And it turns out that if he adheres to what he's supposed to do, pay a fine, and he will not actually serve any ban. What do you make of that, Emma?
Yeah, look, I suppose a fair bit of public outrage to the decision, but I think when you look a bit deeper into the facts of the case, like, it's fair to say, like, again, the IHRB, they kind of jumped to a bit of a conclusion, probably tried to make a bit of an example of Luke Coolmore Jr. Look, it was awful PR, I suppose, when the news broke that these carcasses were found on the land of a licensed trainer. So I suppose the IHRB kind of jumped at that and reacted with giving him the ban. But like, if they had investigated it properly before that, like, they surely would have found it hard to ban him, given there was no real physical evidence as to who owned these horses, how long the horses were there for, and how they got there. They were discovered, I think, on a piece of land in the forestry. I suppose it wouldn't be really a beaten a track. Like, no one might go down there for years at a time. I think it was only skeletal remains. There was no microchips, nothing of that. I presume they looked into, I think, like, their big case was, oh, you had, I don't know, 70 horses, and, you know, how could you not discover 12 are missing? But I presume they must have looked into the movements of horses to inform the Luke Coolmore Jr. yard, and like, they mustn't have been able to find much of a link to say that these were definitively horses coming from Luke Coolmore Jr. Like, these horses could have been here, like, their skeletal remains, they could have been there for 30 years before Luke Coolmore Jr. was even born, possibly even. Like, it was hard to link it to him. Look, I can see why the public are probably getting I guess, comments on social media that, you know, he shouldn't be allowed to get away with this. But I think when you look deeper into it, like, it was hard to pin him to it. And, like, his comments, I think when they originally came out, like, he seemed to have absolutely no idea what was going on. He didn't know if they were his horses. He didn't know where the horses came from. And that's kind of another question itself. Like, why is he a licensed trainer? Why did the IHRB give this man a license in the first place? I think it's kind of a vanity project for these kind of billionaires to have these yards. Like, he's obviously not training the horses. Is he even on the yard on a weekly basis? Probably not. He could not tell if these were his horses in the forestry or not, which didn't really help the case either, I suppose. But yeah, it's not a bit of a joke, I suppose, from the IHRB this week. Not a great week for them.
What did you make of that one, Johnny?
Yeah, it's a mess, Vinny. You know, like, if you read the IHRB's report last week, the IHRB got a call from a former employee of Mr. Coolmore. So how did this happen? Like, was this a grudge? Why didn't this former employer, I presume this former employer, notified Mr. Coolmore that he, you know, why didn't he get Mr. Coolmore to sort out his you know, the carcasses? Or did Mr. Coolmore even know where these carcasses were? And then the IHRB report suggests that there are a number of different horses of different ages. 7 skulls were readily identified without disturbing the ground. So, I mean, how could you get a situation like this where the horses aren't even properly buried effectively? Yeah, I respect Luke Coolmore's kind of decision to go after this, but Emma's right about the process. Like, how do you have a trainer getting a license who's out of the country for 9 months of the year? Or how do you have a trainer getting a license, like in this situation, Luke Coolmore Jr., who's so basically he basically doesn't know that these carcasses were there, it would seem. And so I thought the whole thing was a mess. And I mean, I have some sympathy with the IHRB here. It's like, if it's not one thing, it's another. And this is just the Luke Coolmore Jr. He's utterly bizarre cases where it's like, how have we gotten to this?
Yeah. Well, we'll move on. We'll go from IHRB across to HRI. They announced recently that there was going to be a new series of races, 60 national hunt races during the year, that were going to be for everybody except the big 4 trainers. So I thought it was reasonably well received, to be honest with you, when it came out originally in the news. And now it turns out that there's only going to be 17 of these races next year, and they'll be in the first half of the year into the end of the national hunt season, from January through to the end of Punchestown. And there'll be 17 of them, and then there'll be a review to see if they ever carry on again. What about this, Johnny? I see you wrote about this during the week.
Yeah, I wrote this. I was tipped off by one of the trainers, basically, who sent me on you know, the Phelan Cunningham's what was a WhatsApp message, I think, presumably to the trainers, what confuses me here is a bit is that when I interviewed trainers about this in, I think it was Tremor, not that long ago. It's fair to say now, it wasn't universally welcomed. And Philip Rothwell, I remember he was one guy who you think like he definitely benefit. He wasn't in favour of it, and I was surprised. Whether and I had no reason to believe that the trainers were being dishonest with me. It wasn't universally welcomed. But at the same time, it's kind of like I would have thought most trainers would vote for this. Like I can absolutely understand why the 4 trainers at the top would be against it, particularly for their owners who obviously have horses in these yards and are paying good money. But the trainers board seemingly has decided now that it's going to review it after 17 races. So we need to get Phelim Cunningham on, and like you can kind of read between the lines that Phelim isn't in favour of it from the press release. He's only replaced Ryan McGilligan recently. Ryan's gone to Ammo, obviously, and Phelim, and as far as I'm concerned, according to the Racing Post, Ryan was in favour of it. Phelim Cunningham's come in. Phelim's not in favour of it. But I don't really see the negativity around this thing, to be honest. Like it's 1.2 races a week, to help trainers like Emma's father and the 95% of trainers in this country or whoever who are basically doing okay or struggling to get by. Like it's a massive number of trainers who are just about kind of plugging away in a tough national hunt environment. You look at the race meeting today at Huntington with the field sizes. The national hunt game in this country is in trouble. Like the cost versus the reward versus the possibility of getting any sort of a decent horse that isn't snapped up from France or point to points is very, very little now. The national game numbers wise is in big, big trouble. And for me, the IHRB, you can pick flaws in it. And if you're Gavin, or particularly Gavin, and you can say Gavin Cromwell, you can say this is very harsh on me. And Gavin has put so much money into it. And I get that. I see both sides of the argument. But the absolute negativity around having 1.2 races per week for trainers out of and this isn't targeting specific trainers. This is targeting trainers with a number who will fit that criteria over a couple of seasons. I don't really see all the negativity around it. I can see why you'd be against it, but it's been suggested to me it wouldn't do anything for the game. It would do something for the game because trainers would have winners that they wouldn't otherwise have, and we'll see how the review goes. As I say, I respect both sides of the argument here, but the negativity around this move I find bizarre.
Yeah, look, I think everyone within the industry knows something has to be done because these small lads are going out of business on an almost daily basis, and the big 4 are getting stronger and stronger season after season. But I do think that this was too much of a blunt instrument in the beginning myself, so I think they do need to look at it again and do something different personally. But what do you think, Emma?
Yeah, I kind of echo what you're both saying there. I just thought it was bizarre that HRI hadn't consulted with anyone before they announced this series as well. Like, how can you just make
I'm not sure that's the case, Emma. Like, HRI would definitely argue that wasn't the case, that they consulted various lobby groups. The HRI will definitely say that they were in consultation with the trainers and others.
It's just strange, the fact that the trainer said they weren't consulted then when they announced they were going to take legal action after it was announced. I think the top 4 were kind of... But now I don't think it was an official statement or anything, but I think the reasoning was the fact that they weren't consulted about this at all. And the reason for cutting back, or just reading the piece about it, was they have to consult with more stakeholders. Yeah, I just look bizarre. I can see cases for both. When it was announced initially, I thought it was a good initiative. It's like you said, it's such a minor amount of races each week. I didn't think there would be much backlash, but look, you can see why the big 4 wouldn't like it. Like the likes of Gavin Cromwell, like he's come up from being a small trainer to being one of the big 4 in a very short space of time. So why should he be punished? And Gordon and Willie and Henry the same. Look, you can't punish success, and I think that's what a lot of the backlash about it was. But kind of like you're saying, Vincent, something definitely does need to be done. But
these races are already there, Emma. Like these races are already there. The point is, and it's like races for. What was that? I was at a race meeting early this season. Mike O'Connor was riding because Rachel Blackmore has obviously been injured, but Mike O'Connor was riding that day because it was a meeting that was limited to jockeys who'd ridden a certain number of winners or less. And Mike O'Connor, I hadn't seen much from him. He really showcased his talent that day. These races are already there. This is just putting more of them on the calendar.
Yeah. Look, I agree. Maybe it's because the threshold is so much higher. Like there's ones there. Are they for 15 winners or less? And it's the same as the jockey series. and they're probably in really minor days. I don't know how they're even planning on scheduling these out. Like if they were throughout the summer, would the big trainers care that much about it? Whereas like, you know, if you're going to have them on the weekend racing, maybe it might be different. I don't know. I was surprised initially when the backlash to it was, but look, you can see why. You can see the points against it. Like you can't punish success, and it'll be interesting to see what HRI kind of do, because look, I know it's easy to say, oh, you need to do something, but like, what can you actually do that isn't going to be punishing success at the same time? It's not an easy argument to solve, I don't think.
No, I agree. Anyway, we'll move on to the next one. The 2025 Coolmore Stallion roster. They've added a couple of new ones, as we know. City of Troy being the big one, 75 grand if you want to send your mare to City of Troy. And then the one that really caught my eye, besides the fact that Wusson Bassett has gone up to 300 grand, which seems unbelievable, from 200 to 300, 100 grand increase. That's fantastic stuff, isn't it, if you can do it in your business? Anyway, the one for me is Augustus Rodan. Cannot believe he's only 30 grand. This is a horse who won 2 derbies. He won an Irish Champion Stakes, and he won at the Breeders' Cup when he was 3. If he'd have retired 12 months ago, he'd be 75 grand, the same as City of Troy, would he, Johnny?
Absolutely not, Vinny. I don't think I've ever disagreed with you more, actually. And I think both of us have out there opinions at times, but and we're generally right, by the way. But no, I don't think I was my prediction of the 2 fees, and I'm far from an expert on this, but my prediction was 80 for August Rodan and 80 for City of Troy and 20 for August Rodan. Like, his profile was just too in and out to warrant him being like, that's a massive problem, I think, for a sire, when you have to have, like, I remember talking to William Mullins about this lately, when he was on about like how you'd get a horse, how you'd buy a horse at the sales, and a massive thing for Willie was that the family would be surrounded by winners. Like, that there's a toughness there, and that basically the pedigree would imply that the horse would be sound and would be able to withstand racing. And I think that might be something with Coolmore in recent years. The lads, as we say, the lads are getting older, and I think they kind of want to run their racehorse and that. But they're, Aidan would say they want to run them horses more robustly as well, see if they'll be able to, if their offspring might be able to withstand it. The problem with August Rodan was, as much as he's an exceptional racehorse on his day, a very good racehorse, he wasn't quite top class. For one thing, he was found out in better races to an extent, and also he had those bad runs. And with most stallions being being failures, I actually feel they might struggle with him at 30 grand. City of Troy is a fascinating one. As I say, most stallions are failures. So we'll see how he goes. He's a son of Justify. I can't imagine there are many Justify breds at stud in Europe, if at all, at the moment. So we'll see how he goes. But it probably wasn't far off where I thought. He'd be a really interesting stallion prospect, because obviously he's so well bred in the dam side as well.
Yeah, but you mentioned there about Augustus Rodan, you disagree with me. But the bottom line is, what I'm saying is, if they'd have retired him a year ago, surely he would have been a lot higher than 30 grand, having won 2 derbies, an Irish Champion Stakes, and one at the Breeders' Cup. He had a pretty exceptional 3-year-old campaign, did he not? No,
but you see, he'd already shown a capacity to bomb out as a 3-year-old. This was the thing, and that's why.
So City of Troy now. City of Troy's bombed out twice here.
Yeah, he has, and you can actually say that. In fairness, I feel people give City of Troy a pass on the basis of the dirt or whatever. But August Rodan, I still think as a 3-year-old, I think they almost kept him in training because they couldn't go to stud with him on the back of his 3-year-old campaign. I think they had to prove that he could take another year's racing. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. And then what about you, Emma? See other ones in here. We see the Stars is 250k. And Dubawi, 350,000 sterling. My Jesus, it's unbelievable.
It's a lot of money for a racehorse, yeah. Off the top end, I think Frankel's the same 350, is he? Like, it's mental money, like to spend on a racehorse. But I suppose, like, if you're spending that much money, it's only pocket change to you. Yeah, I thought the pricing of Augustus Rodan was probably one of the most interesting ones. Is that I think they've kind of priced him to give him a good chance, to be honest. Like, they could have probably easily gone 45 or something like that with him. But I think, yeah, he's kind of an eye catcher there at 30,000. I do kind of agree with Johnny. Like, there is plenty of question marks about him. Like, looking through his form this year, he's only won one race this year. Like, isn't it? He won the Prince of Wales in Ascot. Like, he's been beaten comprehensively a couple of times this year as well. But still, like, he's obviously extremely well bred. And, has he won, was it 6 or 7 Group 1s all around the world? So I think he has a good chance. City of Troy, 75. Look, he'll be interesting. And I thought it was Henry Longfellow being retired. I thought was probably one of the most interesting pieces of news as well. I'm not sure what he's really done to justify his place at stud for 18,000 as well. Look, he was a good 2-year-old, I suppose. He won a Group 1, albeit a really weak one. And he was second in Royal Ascot, probably the highlight of his year this year as well. So I thought he was the big surprise, to be honest, among the stallion fees.
Some of them are a bit like, when you look, and I look at some of these sires some days, like how did that horse end up going to stud? But like then you look at it in France, where like they'll send like maidens over fences, maidens over hurdles. Is it just what a law? They'll send these horses who never even won a race and were hurdlers and chasers. They'll send them to stud, and they seem to do okay on the national hunt scene. But on the flat scene, like some of the sires, now you get these situations like Kodiak, who was $5,000 to 50 grand, but like some of the sires that go to stud, how are these horses considered? They mightn't even have the pedigree in the first place, and then they might be like there might be a Group 2 winner. Like, is that good enough to go to stud? But I don't know. It's most stallions are massive failures.
Yeah, Henry Longfellow, like he's obviously really well bred, and by Dubarry, maybe that's the angle and tip. I was just surprised that they kept him. I suppose they didn't sell him somewhere else. But look, maybe he'll be a success. It'll be interesting to watch, because they got rid of a few fair few as well, didn't they? Coolmore, Satsas, and a couple others kind of gone to Turkey and Japan and a few places like that. So it seems to be a bit of a clear out.
No, all right, we'll move on. Last big thing we're going to talk about is a stalls issue at Chelmsford on Saturday night. I don't know whether our viewers have seen this, but they probably did if they were watching racing on a Saturday night at Chelmsford. Anyway, the last race, turns out the horses go out from the stalls. It was a 1.25 mile race. So by the time they come around the track, the stalls still hadn't moved. There was a problem with the tractor, couldn't pull the stalls back out. So there were flags waving at them around the bend as they turned, and in fairness to them, they all stopped in time, but it could have been a very serious incident. What did you make of this one, Johnny?
Like I have to say, obviously, I don't know where I was Saturday night, but I wasn't watching this anyway. And then I saw, like, I remember I don't know if you remember the case of the stalls handler in Navan. I think it was Navan before, where they let the horses go before the stalls handler had come away. I remember talking to Dennis Egan about it at the time, and I was kind of thinking, like, when it's human error involved, like, you can kind of see how this might happen, where, like, you know, the flagman just has a momentary freeze, or he doesn't see him, and that man in Navan was very badly injured, from what I remember, because he was basically knocked over by a horse coming out of the stalls at whatever miles an hour. But when you've human error, I was thinking, I don't know what Emma's view on this is. Like, if you're a jockey coming into the straight going at the guts of 35, 40 miles an hour here, like, what's your actual thought process here? As to, it reminds me of when I crashed my bike once very, very badly, and I was going around a bend, got completely out of control, and I had three options. I remember one was to go straight into a signpost, the other one was to go straight into a tree, and the other one was to go straight into the ditch. So I in a split second, I decided, right, the least possible crash here is to go straight into the ditch, and I woke up with concussion a few minutes later. It's like, what would the jockeys do here? Like, there's actually no good solution to this.
Yeah, what you make of it, Emma?
Oh no, it was terrifying to watch it, like, especially because they were kind of coming around the bend, like they didn't have a whole lot of time to react to it. I know there was someone waving a flag at the side, but sure, you mightn't even spot that fella if you're going at a pace around there. Like, you have to, like, commend the jockeys, because, like, it was a hard job to pull them up in so quick, like, when they were going at pace. Yeah, I suppose the horses would be intelligent as well. They'd spot it, but like, if you were riding with blinkers on there or something, and the horse could only see right in front of them, like, geez, it would have been terrifying. Yeah, we were kind of chatting about this earlier, Vincent. Like, there has to be a better way to let the jockeys know that there's something wrong than a fella waving a flag at the side of the track. Like, I think we were chatting somewhere, and they were saying, like, I think in France there's sirens. So like, if there's something wrong and the jockeys have to stop, the siren goes off, which seems like a really simplistic solution to the whole thing, because, like, we've kind of seen it happen before, like with the flags being waved. It can be confusing, I suppose, over jumps. Like, they might think, oh, you just have to go around the fence, whereas they might want to stop completely. But like just having something like a siren, or, you know, lights or something that let the jockeys know kind of definitively, like, you have to stop here, there's something seriously wrong. It would just be a much better solution, you'd think. But yeah, geez, it was terrifying to watch, and kind of lucky that no one was hurt, I suppose.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to come up with some solution, aren't they? Because you've got to have something for all eventualities. It could have been anything. It could have been a woman pushing a pram with 2 babies in it across the track, or God knows what could pop up at some point, and there has to be a way of stopping a race immediately, doesn't there? It could, as you say before, like you had the stalls handler in Navan, but like we've had plenty of incidents over the years where there's been stricken jockeys or horses on the ground at odd parts of tracks and may not be covered at the time. There's no ambulance people with them or whatever. If that was to happen, that's why they brought in 2 ambulances now instead of 1 at race courses as well. But there needs to be a way to stop them, I agree. What do you think, Johnny? Any thoughts on that? How do you stop these races instantly?
Yeah, I think the siren, like, it's funny, we live beside an army barracks here, and the siren goes off every now and then to get the soldiers to do their mock drill or whatever. And sometimes I just wonder, is it a sign from God for me that the siren is going off? But yeah, I don't know. It's probably like you can imagine being on a night out, like at the race course, and then the 2-minute warning. But yeah, I don't know. I'd never seen anything like this before, to be fair, but it could have been bad.
Anyway, we shall move on. Have you a horse to follow from me from last week? Maybe you go ahead, Emma. I'll let you start this week.
I won't give Noble Talent again, because I must have given him at least 15 times already on this show, I say. But no, I'll go. It's actually not a horse who ran, but she's going to run this weekend, I think, according to Gordon Elliott. I was up in Navan there during the week there was kind of a launch of the Navan Racing Festival. There's a few horses galloping, and Jack Kennedy was riding a mare called Qualimita, I think her name is. She ran once last year. She's in the Robcourse Silks. She's going to run, I think, in a maiden hurdle at the weekend, and Gordon says he thinks she could be top class. So maybe even one for a little anti-post for the Mayor's Novice Hurdle or something, because Gordon's not normally not too far wrong, and I don't think he says things like that unless he really believes it. So just thought it was an interesting kind of takeaway.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. All right, I see with Navan this weekend they've got the Troytown Chase, but I was seeing they sent out an email earlier today telling us that they've got a free shuttle bus. And what's interesting, this is from the town of Navan up to the track. What's interesting about the free shuttle bus, if you live in that area, even if you don't live in that area, drive up there and get the free shuttle bus, because the first 100 people on it are going to get a bacon butty, a race card, and a free Irish coffee. Jeez, you couldn't go wrong, could you? Anyway, there you go. That's Navan this weekend. Johnny, what about you? What did you spot?
Yeah, I have to give kudos to see the crowds at Navan on TV for this meeting last year is brilliant. And like what's his name? Noel Moran is building, I think, the only 5-star hotel so far in County Meath. And like Meath isn't necessarily a place a lot of tourists will go to. So like the idea of people, and particularly not Navan, so people staying in the area and doing the 2 days and what that means to locality, not underestimating. The shuttle bus is brilliant. Like I massively think one of the problems the Curragh has is that people, they can't get public transport there easily, and they can't have a drink at the races. And God knows race days are long now if you're just basically chatting all day. So the ability to go get the bus, have a drink, and come back and enjoy your day and get your free bacon butty. Happy days, and best of luck to Navan this weekend. It's one of my favourite racetracks. I'm going to go with Seafort, right? This is a slightly left field one, but Sheila Lavery, I think, paid 70 grand for him as a yearling, and she said before the race on Wednesday at Gorn or at Dundalk, I thought was interesting. I still don't regret paying the money. Now he's rated 63. So he's a 2-year-old rated 63 by Siuni, who obviously is a lot more than 70 grand. But I thought he ran a nice race, slightly messy nursery, and he's not one I'm giving up on. And Sheila obviously has a lot of hope for him as well. I see she was in the news splashing the cash lately, but she still has hopes for this lad.
Good stuff. All right, I'll give you one. It's called Dancing Teapot. Got beaten in Dundalk last week. A 2-year-old filly by Camelot, trained by Joseph O'Brien. I think it's got an Oaks entry for next year as well. Anyway, got beaten, but flew home. Fast finish in second. Probably would have won only for Colin Keane gave the winner an inspired ride from stall 14 called Misappropriation, which was a good week to be having a winner called Misappropriation after all that happened at the IHRB. Anyway, Dancing Teapot is the one. She's a filly, and hopefully she will win in the next couple of weeks. I'd say he'll send her back up there to get her maiden out of the way. So that's it from us. We will have more shows during the weekend. We'll be back on Friday with a form scan looking ahead to the weekend, where we have not only Navan, but we've also got the Cheltenham November meeting, which will be some cracking stuff. Loads of Irish horses going to run there too. So great weekend of racing coming up. If you are having a bet, do gamble responsibly. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, to make sure you don't miss any of our fantastic shows. And we'll see you all again next week for something similar. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.